Hi, Rafnun again. The previous session was very, very informative and hope you all gained a lot of insights from the previous session. Now let's move on to another interesting panel discussion on Editors Roundtable, hybrid newsrooms and challenges of post-pandemic newsroom organizations. So for this, now I would like to invite Ms. Debarati Guha, Director Asia Programs at Welle, Germany, to moderate this session. A short introduction about Debarati. Debarati Guha is a Director of Programs for Asia in Welle, Germany. Prior to this, Ms. Guha was heading Welle's Asia department from 2018 to 2021. She also managed Welle's South and Southeast Asian services. Debarati presently oversees 9 Asian languages plus its German, English desks at Welle. Welcome Debarati on stage. I request Debarati to invite all the panelists and start the session. Thank you and over to you.
Thank you so much. So hello and welcome to this Editors Roundtable. Today we will be discussing hybrid newsrooms and challenges of post-pandemic newsroom organization. And for that we have 3 wonderful panelists. Kunal Pradhan, hello, is the managing editor of Hindustan Times. Hi Kunal. And heads the Delhi and NCR editions of the newspaper. We have Harsha Mathew. He's the chief resident editor and director at Malayala Manorama Company Limited. Hello, Harsha.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And last but not the least is Parikshit Bhardwaj, who heads the content and strategy at Jagran New Media. He leads Jagran Josh.com, India's leading educational portal. So a very warm welcome to all of you. Now, thank you. So now COVID-19 pandemic has brought massive disruptions to every facet of life, including newsrooms, of course. It can be described as the first global issue to cause immense changes in the news practices all over the world, including Germany. It forced professionals to abruptly abandon their physical newsrooms and change their working procedures. As at least 204 countries were affected by the pandemic and many experienced periods of confinement and restrictions to social activity, media employees implemented teleworking and virtual communication systems and adapted to the circumstances. However, I think that a crisis can present revolutionary change and growth opportunities for both individuals and institutions. So let me go directly to our first panelist, Mr. Kunal Pradhan from Hindustan Times. Kunal, what changes did the pandemic brought to your newsroom?
Thanks, Debarati, and delighted to be here with Harsha and Parikshit. Okay, so, I think the way to look at this is, this was one thing that happened that affected all newsrooms across the world in almost an identical manner, both in terms of the story that we were covering and the circumstances that we were facing. You couldn't really say that if there is some newsroom that has expertise in XYZ, they had a head start on any other, both in terms of how they're going to behave and how they're going to cover this event that has come before us. I think we realized very soon that it's going to be a big problem. We acknowledged it, I think, about 3 weeks to a month before, the lockdowns, etc., came in, that there needs to be a plan in place for what is likely to follow. I think there were basically, and I'm sure the others will agree, 2 things that we had to balance right from the start. One was safety of our employees, of our colleagues, of the entire press ecosystem that we worked in. And the second was the responsibility that we had to our readers and to the public at large to cover it in a manner that, whatever problems we face don't get translated into what is going out to them. I think for that, we fell back on, I think the most important thing that you should at a time like this, which was basically science and data. So we decided very quickly that any decision we take in terms of how we re-engineer our newsroom, how we re-engineer the newspaper, and what we are telling people will be based largely on these 2 principles. So really get into the science of COVID, really get into the data and try to understand what is happening. We knew there'll be lots of things that will cause, panic buttons to be pressed. Let
Right.
them not be pressed prematurely, but be aware that, the situation is such that it needs major adjustment. Another thought that we had was we have to try our level best to protect the newsroom atmosphere in whatever way we can, because newsrooms are what produce newspapers and what goes out now on our websites. It's very hard to create the buzz that a newsroom has when you're sitting in your own homes in isolation. So we basically worked out a plan that we will try and minimize days when we are completely isolated from each other, and try to create units and teams that will allow at least some of us to keep coming into work unless it is absolutely essential that we don't, because of
So
our
like
own
a
health
A
and safety.
team and B team. So
Yes.
it's
So
like
we actually
around.
created A, B, C, D teams across departments, particularly for the desk people. We told our reporters, you need to be out. If you want to come to office, we are not going to bar you, but as best you can for your own safety, for the safety of the newsroom, work from outside. Work the phones, even if you're going out, find places, from where you can safely file your stories. But the desk that actually brings out the paper, there needs to be a system that people start coming in. So we largely worked on an ABCD model. And we are happy to say that other than about 10 days of Delta, when it was just, Delhi was being ripped apart by the pandemic at that point, and it was really, it was almost like a war zone. Other than that, we managed to keep people in the office constantly. I was always there with one unit, and our editor-in-chief Sukumar was there with another unit, and we basically just ensured that there is some sort of streamlining that happens. And if there's a scare in one unit, the other unit can immediately sort of step in as a fallback. So I think we were very, very clear that we are not going to try. We're going to try and not abandon the newsroom. And I feel, and I think a lot of our readers' feedback that we got was they sort of benefited from us, not going completely isolated, and just making sure there are people to be the nerve center of the product that we're going to pass on. And secondly, before I let the others come in on this, we also made sure that our coverage is driven by exactly these two principles: lots of science, lots of data. It's basically numbers, read up on new researches. And, like I said, every single newsroom was coming at it equally. Whether you're, a big newspaper in the UK or the US or India or Germany or Australia, the story was exactly the same to us. So it was actually an opportunity to cover it at a absolutely global scale, going for
Because it was after a long time, it was hurt basically globally. So everybody had the same needs and concerns. So I will now move to Harsha. Malaya Manorama has operations, if I'm not mistaken, in print, television, radio, and digital properties. So how challenging was COVID-19 for your organization, Harsha?
I think from day one, I think we've tied up. The Kerala government helped us to allow our journalists come work every day. They allowed us to come to office every day. So just need to show, if they stop us, they just need to show the ID card to them. But and we set up. It was quite challenging actually, because we had to split our newsrooms, our staff in different batches, because as Kunal said, the safety and the health of each staff is the most important aspect. So you have to split them at different levels and different days. So example, one staff comes today, he won't come for next 2 days. His shift only comes after 3 days. So that way the company keeps on running, because it is our duty to give news out to the public, and it's in a form of newspapers or to television or digital. So that way, I think the company continued to run, and we had people sitting in every corner of the office.
So like a rotation system, exactly what Kunal was saying.
Yeah. So I think all the companies do the same thing. I think India, all media companies follow kind of the same setup, different stages, different batches, and make sure the news comes out every day or every minute. That's most primary aspect, keeping everyone's safety in mind.
Being the digital wing of the Jagran Prakashan Limited, how did COVID influence you, Parikshit? If you could tell us. Your microphone is still switched off, Parikshit. No, we still can't hear you. Yes.
Bharati, yes, yeah, right. Thank you for having me, first of all. I think I would agree to my panelists here. We had the same challenges which we faced. I think it was a time which was unprecedented in history. We had not seen anything of this sort, and I would have to admit that we were caught off guard. I think all of us. But I think it was also an opportunity in the crisis. I mean, in the absence of any other phrase here, because I think in the times of crisis, people were able to acclimatize quite fast. I have seen, yeah, and this, I think it was common across all the organizations. When we talk about Jagran, I would say our print operations, they had a challenge in the beginning, but they were also able to uh, to to adapt to it. But when we come to the online wing of Jagran, I mean, we had a virtual ride here where, I mean, we had the initial hiccups, but soon I was amazed to see how our entire team adapted to it. We had acts of, absolutely going beyond the call of duty. But still, we had in our mind that we were clear that at this point, we can't endanger the health and the lives of our people. So, of course, the safety came first, and we had to take a tough call here. And we thought, it's time to go. It wouldn't be wise to call the people to office, and we took that call. It an initial impact, but then people just they went right. So and people were able to give more productivity because of the time saving in terms of the commute to office. And I'm happy to say that we were EBITDA positive, and we crossed 100 million users in this time. So I mean, everybody came together, and it was actually a celebration of the human spirit and the triumph of it. And I think we came out quite well. And but after that, we were also able to see that once things had normalized, we should start calling people to office in batches. So as I think Kunal also mentioned, we also had a roster system, and we used to call 10% of our teams, and we gradually this thing experimented with it, and then we were able to even come back to. So it's been a transition, I'll say, where we were able to go to the hybrid space, and then we were able to come back. So we are now completely back online. We have a new office. It's like a spanking office where everybody is coming, and I think unless we have to take another call, I think it's been a transition which has worked quite well.
Parikshit, you were talking about the initial struggle in print, and I remember there was a drop in newspaper sales in India during the pandemic. That is true, at least for the regional language newspapers, if I'm not wrong, because people were scared, that physical or printed newspapers could spread COVID. Thus, less people were reading newspapers, and many went digital. And that is why you just mentioned that there was this huge rise in your viewership in the digital segment. Kunal, was there any change in your content due to the pandemic?
Yes, Debarati. There was a major change in our content. See, basically about 15 days in, so towards the end of March, once the lockdown was in place, we realized that the story that we're covering is now universal and singular. So we actually changed our newspaper completely. We abandoned sections. We didn't have city pages. We didn't have nation pages. We didn't have world pages. We just created one section, which was basically COVID. And so you got about 12 to 14 pages of just COVID content, which was basically an amalgam of what was happening in your city, what was happening in your country, what was happening in the world. Lots of numbers, lots of data, lots of science.
And research, no? Lots of science,
lots
you
of
just
research, lots of research.
Right.
So, what we did was we actually also realized that it will be very important for a large newsroom like us to rely on our own data and to not only follow data that comes from other sources. So very quickly, we created our own dashboard. So all the numbers that you got were not, the NYT dashboard or the Worldometers dashboard or whatever. It was the Hindustan Times dashboard, for which we collected data as they came out from the bulletins from every state in India. And we had teams that were looking at specific countries to make sure, we have a very good handle of how COVID is going. And we managed our own database. So, at any point, we basically put a few people on the job where at any point somebody says positivity rate is so much, etc., etc. Don't panic. We have 7-day averages, 15-day averages, monthly averages, all at the go. So we are able to actually give you information that is absolutely, vetted by us to a point where we want to inform you without, we want to inform you and warn you, but not make you panic when you don't need to. So basically, it was a complete transformation in how we view news on a daily basis. I think what really helped us was that, Sukumar, our editor-in-chief, is a complete science geek himself. And he wrote a daily column for 300 days on what you need to know about COVID today. So basically, within the newsroom, we realized it gave birth to so many stars who were, really interested in the science, really interested in the numbers, were actually doing other things in the organization up to that point, but basically just embrace this, this change that we had brought about. And not only through COVID, in fact, they have managed to carry it forward through other things, as the pandemic has gone and new things have happened. So yes, a complete, total transformation in the news that we were putting out in the paper, and largely what was going online as well, because it really became the mainstay. It was a one story everybody wanted to read. So we had COVID pages and a sports page.
So you also mentioned, but I think digitalization was increasing, if that nobody can deny at the moment. Even traditional media houses went for shorter articles. You mentioned that you actually omitted world news and lots of other things and basically concentrated on reporting on COVID and giving more information, almost like a constructive or solution-oriented journalism, because you didn't want the people to be panicked and stuff. But a lot of traditional media houses also embraced videos and explainer videos and social media. They went very bizarre in social media, and everybody was doing videos on those days. Was it true for your organization as well, Harsha?
Yeah, that is actually true in a big way. We've seen that during the pandemic or the COVID, the first phase, we've seen I think our digital traffic was at the highest, was at the peak. And after the pandemic or the first phase over, we've seen the drop by 30%. I think we've seen people's consumption patterns changing. I think people wanted access to more digital during the pandemic, so they were using devices more. And they got used to consuming like small videos, podcasts. So they got so used to it, they didn't want to come back to traditional media after that. So we also trying to change our ways of putting news out there, whether it's traditional news or it's on digital news. And also a reporter, a journalist has seen a change also. They've started coming out of the comfort zone. They all started experimenting with podcasts and videos. So, and they also look at a digital first strategy also and moving into that phase. So the newsroom has changed. Our consumption patterns have changed because of consumption patterns of people. So we're actually seeing, and we are trying to invest heavily in our quality content right now, because we've seen people actually during the pandemic. We've seen people actually, they want credible news because there's so much news going all over the place. So they want actual credible news, and now they've seen people willing to pay for news also. So we are moving to a premium model, and without launching our website or our premium model, we actually started getting a good number of registrations as well, because of the credibility factor as well.
Wow, that gives us obviously a lot of hope. But I have heard that special issues or leaflets on women issue were cut during that because resources were not, I mean, there was lots of MLAs got less resources and etc. etc. Even the biggest news were about only 3 to 4 columns long. So what is the situation now at Jagran, Parikshit?
So are you saying that we gone into changing formats to long form?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that in not maybe with you, but Dainik Jagran, for example, they reduced their staff and the articles, and they canceled the leaflets on women because they were not enough resources, and the bigger news became around 3 to 4 columns. So, what is the situation now? Are you guys back to longer news, or are you still doing more shorter news in your organization?
So I think we have come back to the pre-pandemic levels in terms of even our staffing and our coverage as well. I think because in our umbrella we have sites which cater to news, information, education, women's issues. So it's a wide spectrum which we have here, and we have been experimenting with all kinds of formats in video and in text, and we have aggressive growth plans because of which I would say we are completely over the pandemic, so to speak.
That's why you have a new office now. I understand.
Yes. And so I think it also comes from a place where we have our culture is actually steeped into this spirit of collaboration. We lay a lot of emphasis as an organization on collaboration, and while we did excellently in the times of the pandemic, even in the hybrid model, we did quite well. I think we did excellently, but we could always see that it led to a burnout. Eventually we had mental health issues which we could see. We used to arrange trainings and programs.
Parikshit, I will come to mental, sorry Parikshit, I will come to mental health issue a little later, but what I really want to know is that I remember many Hindi or vernacular journalists died because of COVID at that time, basically in the second wave. And we from Germany were looking at horrifying pictures. Resources were also poor at that time. And because circulation was less, there were also budget cuts, if I'm not wrong. So, for example, companies shifted to digital ads. Is it true for your organization?
So I think one thing we did not have any layoffs. All the employees were protected. That's one thing we were having. People were being fired across the industry. We used to hear horror stories about people being asked to take pay cuts, which at times were also reasonable in their circumstances. But we, as I told you about our culture, I mean, our CEO was also awarded for being among the best leaders in the times of the crisis, which had a reason. He ensured that as a company, we have to ensure that our people are taken care of. If they are taken care of, they are going to take care of the operations. So we did have the hiccups, as I said, but they were not significant enough to change anything in our strategy. We used to make tactical changes, but that is what we do as an organization. If we see what works, what is not working, we may make a tactical change, but at the end of the day, Jagran stands for delivering credible news, and that is what we are committed to. So I don't think any kind of compromises were made at any stage. If anything was done, that was quickly addressed, and we are now back to how we were functioning earlier.
On the other hand, employers have they have become accustomed working in their own living spaces. This has happened a lot in the West, and meeting colleagues only were a virtual issue. Now, with a greater acceptance of the virus and widespread vaccination, employees are required, obviously, as you said, their staff to return to the workplace, but many are choosing to quit their jobs. This also we have seen in India, no? Rather than going back to the pre-2020 working model. Harsha, my question to you would be, what does this mean for employees? Are there any retention issue in your organization?
No, I think we've not laid off any employees during the pandemic. And also we paid the entire salary every month, the 100% salary. And of course, as Parikshit said, there's people had health issues, some things. We support them all the time. But only one person, one journalist who died in our company who passed away in Delhi because of COVID. But otherwise, I think we asked all employees to come back to the office, and they're all happy coming back to the office. And I think they got everyone vaccinated and took care of the health benefits, everything. So that way, I think people are more confident now, and we got everyone back to the office, and it's working well. I don't think anyone's resigned in the past 1 year because of this.
Kunal, what's the scene in your organization? Are you all the employees are happy, they want to come back, or you have still a kind of model where you let a small percent of people also work from home? I know there were also opportunities. For example, there were softwares which normally was not given to work for office, outside office, at home. But COVID, a lot of organization gave access to those softwares, including graphics designing stuff. And now that people can do it from home, at least in the West, a lot of people say why we would come. It will cost us commuting time, etc., etc. So what is the situation now in your organization?
Okay. So see, I mean, one of the first things that we did, and I'm sure the others did as well, is basically we ensured that every single employee who's involved in the newspaper production business in filing for the web has an up and running system in their homes. So first and foremost, they should be, and they are even now, in a position where, if required, they can work seamlessly out of the house. When we started calling people back, we started calling them back based on their willingness to return. We found that there were a lot of people who were really wanting to be back in the office. And one of the interesting things that we did, and we hit upon it pretty early in the pandemic, is that every evening we would simulate the newsroom. So from 8:30.
Can you give us a little bit detail on that?
So,
How do you
from
do that?
From 8:30 to 12:30 every night, we would be in a window like we are in right now. The entire production newsroom. I would be there, our department heads would be there, our page makers, staff, editors would be there. So basically, it was almost like we were in the office, even though we weren't. So there would be like 4 of us sitting in the office, everybody else in their homes, but they would be working simultaneously on a screen system where anybody wanted to talk to anybody, they could just speak. Like it happens in a newsroom. Like in a newsroom,
but
people are just
with picture, so that you can see the person virtually.
In the beginning, we said let's all come on video. After we got confident in about 15 days, we made it optional. We said, if you want to turn on your video, please do. If you don't, so what people would sometimes do, they would turn on their video only when they wanted to ask for something, and then sort of put it back off. But for the first 10-15 days, because we were also new with it, we said, okay, let's just everybody look at each other's faces so that we can basically have a conversation like you would be having in a newsroom. And we realized that it really benefited what we were doing. We didn't feel like we were out of touch with each other, because it was getting really hard, and trying to keep calling people and they're not picking up, this is happening, that is happening. On the flip side, it ensured higher productivity. Everybody was on their toes like they would be in a newsroom. And then once we were confident that we can simulate a newsroom even if everybody is not here, we opened it up to the willingness of people to return. And we found that most of the people did want to come back to the office. They just wanted
and this, Kunal, you did by talking to them one-to-one virtually, or how did this?
So we spoke to all the department heads and asked them to speak to their people and find out how many of them want to come back. And if people want to come back, we said, in a certain month, we said, okay, now we can have up to 30 people in the office. Then we said, now we can have up to 50 people in the office. Now we can have up to 100 people in the office. So just speak to your departments, build like a basic so that you have representation from everybody, and basically just keep getting them all back in as they want. Because just sitting at home working, we just realized beyond a point, a lot of us journalists live for the energy of a newsroom.
The excitement of the newsroom.
Yeah, the excitement of a newsroom. And you really wanted to be back in the newsroom. And even though we had managed to sort of create a simulated newsroom, the buzz of just physically being in a newsroom, even the buzz of just taking a break with a colleague for 5 minutes, just chatting about stuff. It doesn't happen, when you're connected the way we are virtually. There's a certain bonding in the newsroom that can only come when you're sitting next to each other.
And also ideas, no? Lots of ideas come.
Yeah. You need to look each other in the eye and say, shall we do this? And let's do it that way. So we just got them in on their willingness. Even now, we encourage everybody to be back. But sometimes people just say, and it's happening even now. I mean, there is still
so what
COVID
is the
around.
percentage of people you have now at your office?
We are at almost 100% back.
Okay. And Harsha, how much? Yeah. Sorry, how much?
We are 100% back all over India. All offices.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than some of our tech team, they work from home. We don't require them in the office. Otherwise, we're 100% back in the office.
And Parikshit, you are also almost 100% back. You just said, no, before.
Yes, almost 100%. If anybody has any particular issues, we do take an exception there. But I think everybody is now back.
But Kunal, would you also be open if some of your colleagues still prefer to work from home? What is the policy at the moment?
Debarati, it happens all the time. Like I was just about to say, there's still COVID around, right? I mean, there are still a few cases. I think a lot of them also feel the responsibility. If somebody's not feeling 100%, they just let us know and they say, I'm not feeling 100% today. I'm going to work from home for the next 4 days. Is that okay? We say, yeah, it's okay. There are some people who have, who had moved back home and, their parents are not well. They're saying, can we just settle them and come back, say 2 months from now, 3 months from now? They're like, okay, you have a system. It's set up. Work, at your comfort for this period. But just, if the entire organization is back in the office, let us try to build towards everybody coming back. And, by and large, everybody has.
So there is also a trust which has built over the last
Absolutely.
2 years, right?
See, I think, we don't say it enough, but, everybody, I think, journalists are as much frontline workers as frontline workers in some senses. Even though we are not putting ourselves on the line in terms of how the healthcare workers did, I mean, just above and beyond. But our people, and I'm sure this is true of all newsrooms, have really gone above and beyond the call of duty over these 2 years, particularly during the first year when it was uncertain and the second year when it was genuinely dangerous. I think there is a respect and trust that is built between colleagues with each other, between the organization and the employees in a way that is very hard to describe or imagine. Right. I think everybody sort of starts pulling for each other when you're in the trenches together, and I think that has really come through in this crisis.
So with that note, we had a poll question today for the audience. Virtual or hybrid offices saves commuting time with a far greater degree of flexibility, and with that came a better work-life balance, at least in the West. Do you agree? So 78% have said yes, and 22% have said no. So Kunal, it could be, and for Harsha and Parikshit, maybe that we also have to be really open. The trust which we got, at least in the Deutsche Welle, we had every week 1 hour session where anybody can come and talk anything but work. And that made us much closer to each other. And before we open the floor for questions, you can already write, audience, your questions in the chat. My last question to all three of you would be, during the COVID-19 pandemic, journalists had and still have challenging tasks of gathering and distributing accurate information, which you also said, almost like a frontline warriors. This is not an easy task, as the numbers keeps on rising. Even now, numbers are rising in India, including Germany. And in regular intervals, because we don't know when it is over, because again a new variant can come, etc. And I think that in Deutsche Welle, for example, many of my colleagues, not only in Germany, but all over the world, faced severe issues of depression. And this is where I come to you, Parikshit, because you were mentioning mental health. How would you tackle the problem of mental health within the circumstances?
Right. I think it's an excellent question and it deserves all the attention. While, I agree totally, there has been this buildup of trust, which is so important for us in this profession. And I think this has grown in this period where the managers were able to trust their employees to do their job well, and they were not disappointed. But at the same time, the most important thing, if you speak to a mental health professional, they will say that the physical contact is so important for us, and when you are confined to homes, while you may be working well, you may be connected through Zoom calls as we are at this point in time, but then after a while, that physical connect, you can't actually replace that. So while in the time of the pandemic, while we were operating hybrid, our HR department did organize a lot of initiatives where we called professionals and who addressed the problems of our staff. We also took initiatives in which we were able to organize online meetings where the employees could meet and they could connect. So you can go up extent in the hybrid mode, but after a while, if you see the overall mental health of the employees, it's that they come in contact, because collaborative work is at the heart of this profession. And only when you come to office and you're able to see the others, there is that exchange of vibes and the energy. You can't, the online, I think ever you can do, it will not be the same there. So in the interest of the mental health of the employees, I would say that in the long run, if we are not putting them at risk, coming in the office and working as in the pre-pandemic times as a part of a big team, collaborating, exchanging views, arguing even at times, that is what keeps our minds healthy. So I think that is, at the end of the day, that's the best antidote.
Okay, so Harsha, the same question goes to you. Have you been tackling mental health? What has been the result and how you see it now?
Actually, in the first phase, we found a lot of people had issues of mental health. I didn't know what to expect. That's the worst thing. They didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow or day after. And they're scared of their loved ones. They couldn't see their parents. Their parents are far away. They couldn't meet them anyway. So people are upset, and there were a lot of things going on in the mind. So we had to mainly just people who come to us, they speak to us, we help them whatever we can. Even if their parents are sick somewhere else, we ensure they get good health care. So we try to give as much confidence as to the people as possible, so that we can take care of loved ones or what they want us to. Even suppose a person who's here, whose father's in Delhi, you want to go to the hospital there, we arrange them to go to the hospital in Delhi. We make sure there's the doctor there waiting in the hospital, look after him or her. So we gave them confidence. So that actually helped them in releasing their energy or releasing their scares. I think they're not scared as much as possible. So help them every single day how to handle different situations. That helped quite a bit. And after that, it's streamlined, and we still do yoga sessions for employees. So all that is still happening right now, just to get them back on board.
Kunal, your 2 cents on that.
Okay. So I think it works on 3 ways. One of them, Harsha just spoke about. I think it was very important to give our employees the confidence that if something happened to them or people close to them, we were there, and we would ensure that they got the medical help that was required at the time of COVID. It was something that gave them a bit of reassurance in terms of how they and their loved ones will be taken care of. Secondly, like I've already explained, on the work front, our effort was to try and create as much normalization as you can in an abnormal time. So just try and create a work environment where they feel as close to normal as possible, even though they're not. So the simulated newsrooms, making sure the meetings are still going on, etc., 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 was a part of that. So that those anxiety factors don't build in. However, mental health, COVID or not, is an important issue for all offices to be very mindful of. And I think HR did a very good job during COVID. They developed this, which is really helping us now as well. So when you sign into the system, which you can do now from a mobile phone, or your computer saying I'm now logged on and ready to edit or ready to report, we put in a button saying how are you feeling today, which could be a physical feeling, which could be just you saying something, which could be and the teams mapped it to see if there are people who need any sort of intervention in terms of somebody calling them up, talking to them, asking, are you feeling okay? So I think that was a really big help, and we use it even after the pandemic. So when you log in, you just say that how you're doing, and basically it just helps people reach out to you with help which otherwise would not be possible. And when everybody is back, I think these things are slightly easier to pick up on. And all good human resources teams now are sort of trained to take care of problems that arise.
So we have, I think, around at least 15 minutes. So before I will ask the completely final question, I want to take some of the questions from the audience. So there are one question: work from home, is it not the best system or system for journalists? Any of you can start? Kunal, you want to start, and then maybe the best system or not? I mean, you have answered in a way that there is no excitement, there is no challenge.
See, I think a journalism newsroom needs to be viewed slightly differently from how you view any other corporate office. There is a creative energy that is very, very important in the newsroom. And a newsroom is not a solo project; it's a collective project. That creative energy needs to flow within teams, within team leaders, to their teams, with each other, with their editors. So I think the pandemic has taught us that we can make do with working from home when required. But by and large, I would not say it's the ideal setup that you should be in a newsroom, because there's a certain we've all talked about it already. There's a certain buzz that is.
And also, maybe we were not very clear, but there is a chain system which works in newsroom. No, it's not like one person does the whole news alone. There's somebody does the research, somebody writes it, somebody edits it, somebody cuts it if it is a video, and there's the graphic people doing graphics. So this chain gets. So maybe that is also important when the audience has to understand.
Yeah, I mean, you can give your design colleagues instructions, but there's really no substitute to pulling up a chair, sitting next to them, and saying, "Yeah, let's try this." You do a bit of a sketch, they do a bit of a sketch, and that's how you get really good stuff out. Same when reporters are collaborating on stories, when people are designing pages, when there's news to be broken even on the web. I mean, it's really there's really no substitute, another pair of eyes standing over your shoulder and saying, yes, press the button. This is the alert. Go with it. So like I said, it can be done, but I would not say it's ideal in the long term for a newsroom, because we really have to view it as a creative space and not just as just another corporate office.
So there is another interesting question, and I want to go to Harsha with this. Do you think there is a darker side to working from home, and there is a lot we will miss, and we may limit or damage our career growth? The question is asked by Sujit Kumar Jha.
I don't think there's a darker side to it. I think if you need to work from home, if your system allows you, if your work allows you to work at home, nothing wrong with that. But as Kunal said, journalism is different. It's you need to be in the newsroom to have learn from each other, understand each other, and also get different angles of a story also. Maybe sit at home, you may not think of another angle unless a colleague helps you in that, and difficult to do it over a phone. And also if it's a web journalist to upload it, will have any tech issues that lying at home. All that needs to all that plays a part. But I don't think there'll be a halt in your career growth if you stay at home and if you continue to do the same work. I don't think there'll be an issue on that.
Parikshit, would you like to add your comment on this?
Yes, yeah, I'd like to add here. I think, this question, it's coming from, it's about we should make attempts that it actually does not come up, because in all fairness, journalists can be at times self-effacing people. They would want to do their job and get on with it. But proximity bias is something which is, I think, our job as managers and desk heads to ensure that just because some people are in office and are seen more, that it should not give them the kind of edge which I think is the intent of this question. And it's not entirely misplaced. It's a valid fear, I think, which it's our responsibility to ensure that it should not come true. So while I would agree with Kunal, it should not be in the ideal world, it should not be a fear at all. But
okay, I think I got Parikshit's connection is still a little bit disturbing, but anyway, we will move into the third question from the audience.
okay.
In your idea, what are the new challenges in post-pandemic for the newsroom? Let's start with Harsha, then we go to Kunal.
I think the most challenging, I think right now will be how to keep the readers engaged with their content. I think they are, as I said earlier, the tastes are changing, the consumption patterns are changing. How to with the traditional media also, how to give the readers what they want to read. I think, and also with newspaper, but because as I said earlier, it should be long stories, opinion pieces. Opinion pieces generally more longer. Do they actually want that? So we have to keep on understanding what the reader wants and have many, maybe I'm not saying surveys, but have many focus group meetings with the readers, see what they want, how their consumption patterns are changing, and adapt and move accordingly to their needs as well.
So I think I was recently in a management training where we learned that every news organization have a value proposition, but the value proposition has to match with what the consumers think. Now, Harsha just mentioned, and they are doing surveys to understand what the consumers wants actually after the post-pandemic situation. Kunal, do you also see any changes, or what are the new challenges, which was the question, in the post-pandemic newsroom situations?
See, I think newsrooms, across the country, across the world, were consistently facing challenges from multiple fronts in any case. There was a challenge of, people now directly reaching out to others, no filter content through social media, people basically trying to cut out the middlemen, as, some famous politicians abroad used to call it. And so I think there were challenges in any case. I think what the pandemic did was, what we were seeing as something that, we would face over an extended period of time, suddenly got, just accelerated. And I think, more than anything, I think when we look back upon it after, in a while, from a larger, business of media and, newsroom perspective, you will actually look at it as a bit of an opportunity, because it, rather than a problem, because it really made us very, very quickly start introspecting and, taking up things that we would have perhaps put down 6 months later, 1 year later, and start seeing what is it that now needs to change in the newsroom, in our readers' behaviors, as Harsha was talking about, in the topics that we need to give to them. Yeah, I think what has happened to us, for example, big change. While we were scientifically and data inclined, I don't think we would have gone in this direction in the manner that we did had the pandemic not forced us to. and we've
Of course.
learned very good lessons from it, which now we apply to everything. Whether it is.
So have you become more focused now, or know how to become focused?
Whether it is the climate crisis, whether it is the changing pattern of rain in India, heat in India, cold in India, whether it is cropping patterns, whether it is, these are really, really important stories. We get caught up in the daily, and that is important as well in the politics and in the event-based news. But at the end of the day, it really strengthened our belief that these are topics that really need our attention. And they need our attention in the right manner, relying on science, correct science, and relying on numbers. So I think going forward, it made us focus on things that we wanted to focus on, but we were just kicking it down the road and saying, "Oh, let's."
Because there were so many other things now, and you.
Yes. It sort of focused us. So I think at the end of the day, it will be. I think the big challenge will be for people who are not adapting. I think it's very important to understand that the time to adapt has come, and it's very important that we do it.
So there is another question I find is also interesting. I asked it in a shorter way, but and Parikshit that time said, of course, that you guys have gained a lot of new people, new viewers. You could attract more. But was there any change due to the pandemic on readers or subscribers? Yeah, content consumption. Was there any change, especially related to that?
Yes, so I think there was we had a lot of interest. We could see that people were keen to understand. We saw actually changes. I think it went through stages. Like this, initially, everybody was keen on understanding what exactly it is, and once they were informed about it, they wanted to go and understand deeper. So we accordingly we used to change our strategy to include more analytical stories, explainers explaining the aspects which we saw was the need. And then we also saw that over a period of time there was also people got also tired of all the gloom and doom around. So while you would not want to doctor the news, you need to be aware that what are the changing tastes and what is the user actually seeking. So I think I'll say one thing which was that solution journalism is also one thing which we should not be losing sight of. And I think as we speak now, it's more of a need now that we move to also showcasing what is happening positive there is a lot of it. So, I mean, just to take an example, we had done a series Positive India, which we were happy to see was taken quite well. I mean, we used to chronicle examples of people who were actually doing good work in the field of education, health, everywhere, and people saw it as a breath of fresh air, and we got a lot of feedback coming from the people that we want to hear about this also. You open all we have to see. And I think this also helps us understand what our users actually want. So this is and this is going by data. I'll say this is going by the data and your readers, what your users want. So I think this is one. This is how we saw.
I think Parikshit, I'll stop you there. Again, your connection is getting bad, but I think we understood already what you're trying to say. It's basically, and if I can say that one of the greatest learning from COVID, at least for you and for me as well, was that it gave us a different opportunity to see and focus, to understand more what the customers need, what would be the consumption, where we can focus, not only giving tiring news that so many deaths and this has happened, that has happened, but also giving alternative perspective, because there were in society, lots of people were also coming up and helping each other. There was people who were giving food. There were people who even, helped the frontline workers. We had viral videos of police dancing and frontline workers, health workers dancing to give that gest. And I think we need to focus on that. Still, there is one question on huge layoffs, but I think we can skip it because actually we have answered that. I mean, all of you have said that in your organization, at least, there were not any layoffs. And so we don't have to go into that. But I think what I would like to know from all of you one by one is that what is the main learning which COVID give you if it is not similar to what we already decided or discussed? And the second is, I remember there was lots of fake news during the time of COVID as well. Now, there were, you drink urine, cow urine, and you will be cured, and you do that, and you drink alcohol, you will be cured. So this also gave us the opportunity to focus and, as said, science-based, well-researched pieces. So what is the main learning from COVID which you guys took? It could be HR, it could be content, it could be anything. So I would start with Harsha, please.
I think main learning was the importance of safety among the people and their welfare or their families as well, and how it affects the work as well. So because if the install confidence in the people, and automatically their work is 100%, we look at that. So important safety is number one, and then everything else comes in. As you said, the second point is it's about credibility. I spoke about it earlier. I think we're seeing a lot more traction in our digital because of credible news, and also we're investing lots on content, on how to access content and how to give out content also. So that's what we're investing right now, focus on right now as well.
Thank you. Kunal, your last line, because I think we are almost up the time.
Okay. I think most important learning from an internal perspective was basically building trust within your teams, of the fact that you may be faced with whatever problem, unseen, uncertain, that together you can pull through. And I think the last 2 years is very, very important for everybody to basically understand that. Second was no shortcut to credibility, no shortcut to double checks, triple checks, 4-time checks, particularly when we were faced with a barrage of ridiculous news like you just pointed out. It was very important that, if people read a story about COVID, for example, and I'm just using COVID as the test, and we then sort of passed it on to everything else, on HT, they know that it is absolutely right. And I'm sure all newsrooms sort of strive.
Thank you, Kunal. We are almost at the end. I think the learning is basically credible news, well-researched, and new opportunities. So thank you all for joining this Editors Roundtable. I have enjoyed myself. I hope you got also some insights and mostly had fun listening us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debarati, and all the panelists. The session was very, very interesting and interactive. So the panelists have wonderfully shared a pandemic and post-pandemic organization experience.
I hope the time management was okay.
Thank you so much. So everything went on well, and the time was also up now. So audience's questions were also very interesting and excellently answered by all the panelists. So with this, we come to the end of the session. Now I request everyone to go back to timeline and join the next session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.